Thank you, Julio, for a very clear presentation. These are problems that are not obvious to people if they haven't worked with this system. And so it's important to get a handle on how these work before you get too involved. So I appreciate it very much.
Hello, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So, this the simulation that Julio has showed, that is basically on single cells. So, if you have confluent cell monolayer without the medium, then
Yes.
does this changing the parameter will affect the same way as for the single cell as well? Means as they are doing for the single cell. So, will it become the same for the confluent cell monolayer as well?
Yeah. Well, the answer is mostly. If you have a confluent monolayer of cells, you have cells in touch contact with other cells. And so in that case, instead of the cell medium contact energy, what will matter is the cell-cell contact energy, and everything else will be similar. One difference is that if you have cells in contact with each other, as Julio showed at the very beginning, you'll have threefold junctions where cells have vertices, three cells come together. And those junctions have slightly different behaviors from a single cell which has no vertices. And so that will look more like the simulation that Giuliano showed of foams, where you have dynamics because of the behavior of the threefold contacts between cells. You saw the simulation that Julio showed early on of cell sorting, where you had cells of two different types that separate. That's the kind of surface energy dynamics that you get when you have cells in contact with each other.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Just to give you a heads up for tomorrow, we're going to talk about applying explicit forces to cells. That allows you to do various kinds of cell motility simulation. Then we're going to have the hackathon lightning talks, followed by a discussion of the hackathon and some presentation by TJ of the COVID models that he's been building with CompuCell. And then in the afternoon, Joshua is going to tell you how to implement chemical fields and diffusion and to understand how those work. So that's the agenda for tomorrow. Are there any other questions or comments? I'm looking in the chat. If you're going to do apical basal polarity, then depending on what kind of system you're working with, you may want to use compartmental cells where the individual cells have different apical basal and basolateral properties. And Julio will show you how to do that later in the course. Any other comments or questions? I know it's getting a little bit late. These are long days. They're long days even when we did it in person, but they're longer. They're longer now that that we do things by Zoom. I appreciate everyone's patience with any snafus about Zoom or NanoHub implementations.